You know, sometimes betrayal doesn't come from strangers or enemies. Sometimes it comes from the very people you gave everything to, the ones who should have loved you the most. And when that betrayal arrives, not as a scream, not as a fight, but as a single, cold text message, it can shatter decades of sacrifice in an instant. That's what happened to me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. My name is Margaret, and I'm 77 years old. I never imagined my story would turn into one of heartbreak, betrayal, and eventually liberation. But life has a strange way of forcing us to open our eyes, especially when we've been blind for too long. It was supposed to be a simple evening. Nothing extravagant, nothing demanding. Just dinner with my son Patrick, his wife Anna, and my grandson Toby. I had been looking forward to it all week. At my age, those little family gatherings mean more than anyone realizes. A warm meal, some laughter at the table, a hug from Toby. Maybe even a "thanks for coming, Mom" from Patrick. That was all I wanted. I had carefully picked out my navy blue dress, the one I saved for special occasions. Not fancy, but neat and respectable. The kind of dress that Anna, who always seemed to find something to criticize, couldn't roll her eyes at. I spent an extra few minutes smoothing it down in the mirror, adjusting my hair, even adding a touch of lipstick. The clock ticked past 6. Dinner was set for 7. I was ready. Then, my phone buzzed. I slipped on my glasses, smiling to myself, expecting Patrick's usual, "Mom, do you want me to grab dessert on the way?" Or maybe Toby sending me one of his silly emojis. But when I read the message, my hands went cold. "You weren't invited. My wife doesn't want you there." 8 words. Not a call, not a conversation, just a text. At first, I thought there had to be some mistake. Maybe Patrick sent it to the wrong person. Maybe his phone had been hacked. But no, the number was his. And the tone, it was his. I sank slowly into my chair, the phone heavy in my hand. My heart wasn't just breaking, it was unraveling. In seconds, decades of memories came rushing back. Patrick as a little boy, clinging to my hand on his first day of school. Patrick at 12, sobbing when our old dog passed away. Patrick beaming with pride as he introduced Anna to me, so full of hope for their future together. And now, Patrick, a grown man, telling me that I wasn't welcome. I didn't cry, not at first. I just sat there, stunned into silence. Something inside me shifted that evening. After all the years, after all the giving, after all the sacrifices, I realized maybe it was time to stop showing up for people who made it clear they didn't want me there. The house was too quiet. My breathing sounded too loud. I stood up, walked over to my old wooden desk, one that had belonged to my mother, and opened the drawer where I kept all my financial documents. Every folder was neatly labeled, every receipt carefully filed. My eyes landed on the thickest folder, marked Patrick. I pulled it out, and my hands trembled slightly as I flipped through the papers. Each sheet told a story of sacrifice. My sacrifice. A $20,000 check to help Patrick launch his business, the one that folded in less than a year. Tuition receipts from when Anna decided she wanted to go back to school for her real estate license. Bank transfers for roof repairs, car payments, new appliances. A down payment on their new townhouse, a staggering $120,000 gift I had given, telling myself it was for the family. Page after page, year after year, I had been their safety net. My name was the invisible ink on every corner of that home they lived in. And now, I wasn't even allowed a seat at their dinner table. I stared at the glossy brochure of the townhouse, still lying on my kitchen counter. Patrick had told me, "Mom, you'll always have your own corner here. This house is for all of us." But apparently that corner didn't come with an invitation to dinner. For the first time, I let the ugly questions surface in my mind. Had this all been about love? Or had it just been transactions? That night, I didn't sleep. The words played on repeat. You weren't invited. My wife doesn't want you there. By sunrise, my tears had dried and my heart had hardened. I brewed myself a strong cup of tea, sat at the table, and stared at the stack of documents. And then, with trembling but determined fingers, I picked up the phone. "Good morning, Community Bank. How may I help you?" the voice on the other end chirped. "My name is Margaret Evans," I said, slowly and clearly. "I need to suspend all automatic payments from my accounts." Immediately, there was a pause. "All payments, ma'am?" "Yes, every single one. And I also need to revoke the power of attorney granted to my son, Patrick Evans." The woman hesitated. "That's a significant change, Mrs. Evans. We'll need your signature to finalize it, but I can begin the suspension now." "That's what I want. Start today." The silence that followed was not awkward. It was liberating. For over 2 decades, I had been the lifeline for Patrick and Anna's lifestyle. But that morning, I remembered something my late husband James had always told me. "Love them, Margaret, but don't ever let them walk on you." When the bank confirmed that all 174 automatic payments had been blocked, I exhaled. I hadn't even realized how heavy the weight had been until I let it go. That morning, I didn't just cancel payments. I reclaimed myself. The morning after I shut down the payments, my phone buzzed again. The name flashing across the screen was one I had known my whole life: Patrick. I didn't answer. Not this time. Instead, I typed a simple message: short, cold, final. Time to pay your own way. I hit send, turned the phone face down on the table, and for the first time in years, I felt free. It didn't take long for Patrick to show up at my door. By mid-afternoon, the doorbell rang, not once, but in that impatient, angry rhythm I knew too well. The kind of ringing that wasn't asking permission to enter, but demanding it. I sighed, walked to the door, and opened it. Patrick didn't even wait for me to step aside. He barged in, his voice already raised. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" He looked frantic, his usually polished appearance disheveled. His hair was uncombed, his shirt half-tucked, and his eyes darted around like he was already calculating the damage. "The mortgage payment bounced," he snapped. "Anna's car payment didn't go through. The bank called about your accounts. Did you cancel everything?" I folded my hands calmly. "Yes, I did." His jaw dropped. "All of it?" "All 174 transactions," I confirmed. My voice was steady, almost eerily calm. Patrick sank into the living room chair, his body collapsing like the wind had been knocked out of him. He pressed his hands to his temples. "Why would you do this, Mom?" "Why now? We have bills, obligations, Toby's tuition. We need that money. You've always helped us." I took a slow breath and sat across from him. "I did help you. For years. But somewhere along the way, help became expectation, and then expectation became entitlement, and now entitlement has turned into disrespect." He looked up sharply, his face flushing red. "This is about that text, isn't it? Anna was upset. She didn't mean—" "Don't," I cut him off, raising my hand. "Don't try to soften it. You sent that message. You could have stopped it. You could have stood up for me. But you didn't." Patrick's mouth opened, then closed again. He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I leaned forward. "Tell me, Patrick. One thing, just one. Name something you've done for me, not because you needed something, not because you expected something back, but simply because you wanted to." The silence stretched. He stared at the floor. His lips pressed together, but no words came. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. I stood up, walked into the kitchen, and poured 2 cups of tea. I set one in front of him, though I knew he wouldn't touch it. Then I sat back down, folding my hands in my lap. "You see, Patrick," I continued softly, "I've been giving for so long that you don't even see it anymore. It's invisible. But last night, when I read your message, it was like a curtain finally lifted. I saw the truth. You don't see me as your mother anymore. You see me as your wallet." He flinched at the word. "That's not true," he muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it?" I asked gently. "If I hadn't given you the down payment for your house, would Anna have married you so quickly?" If I hadn't paid for her license, would she be where she is now? If I hadn't bailed out your business, would you still be standing on your own 2 feet? He didn't answer. His silence spoke louder than any words could. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my tea. Your father warned me. James always said, "Love them, Margaret, but don't let them walk on you." And for years, I ignored that advice. I told myself it was just love, just helping. But now I see that love without respect isn't love at all. It's exploitation. Patrick's shoulders slumped. He looked suddenly older, smaller, like a boy caught doing something shameful. "I love you, Mom," he whispered. I smiled sadly. Love isn't words, Patrick. Love is action. And right now, the only action you've shown me is rejection. He rubbed his face with both hands, frustrated. So what now? You're just going to cut us off? Let us drown? I placed my cup down with a quiet clink. No, Patrick. I'm going to let you swim. For once in your life, you're going to learn what it means to stand on your own. You're going to learn responsibility. Because love doesn't mean carrying you forever. Sometimes, love means letting go. The silence that filled the room was heavy. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one shrinking back, apologizing, excusing. I was the one standing tall. Patrick finally stood, his hands trembling slightly. Anna's going to be furious, he muttered, almost to himself. I gave a small shrug. That's her burden, not mine. He stared at me for a long moment, as if seeing me for the first time. Then, without another word, he walked to the door. His footsteps sounded heavy, almost defeated. When the door closed behind him, I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the house quiet around me. For the first time in years, I felt the silence wasn't loneliness. It was peace. I opened my journal, something I hadn't touched in ages, and began to write. Not about loss, not about anger, but about freedom. About rediscovering myself. Because that's the truth nobody tells you. When you spend your whole life giving, people forget you're a person. They forget you have limits, needs, dreams. They see you as endless. But even wells run dry. And when they do, when you finally stop pouring, sometimes the people around you collapse. Not because you failed them, but because they never learned to stand on their own. The following week, I received message after message from Patrick. Apologies, pleas, excuses. At first I ignored them. Then I finally sent one reply. I will always love you. But love without respect ends here. I turned off my phone after that. Days later, I walked into the garden James and I had planted together years ago. The roses were in bloom, vibrant and alive. I knelt down, inhaling their sweet fragrance, and smiled to myself. For the first time in decades, I wasn't weighed down by obligation. For the first time in decades, I felt like Margaret. Not Patrick's mother, not Anna's benefactor, not Toby's babysitter, not anyone's safety net. Just Margaret. And that was enough. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't giving more. It's finally saying enough. And that's exactly what I did. If you like this story, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and let us know where you are listening in the comments.